Hello,
All right.
writers and crafters. I'm Valerie Ihsan,
And I'm Erick Mertz.
and this is episode 75 of the podcast, and it is July 6th, 2022, as we record this. Our main topic today is Eric. This podcast is sponsored by our patrons at patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan. For as low as $1 a month, you can get a shout out on the podcast and we can make announcements for you on the podcast. At other tiers, the benefits increase: free books, accountability Zoom calls, scene analysis, mastermind calls, and even free writer craft retreat tickets. Become a patron of the arts at patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan. IHSAN.
I had to laugh because if the topic is me, I'm not going to read the comments. I just don't. I couldn't do it. Eric was not helpful in my writer journey. I think I can be helpful in your writer journey. I'm just saying, just joking.
Well, today we're here to help you on your writer journey. So,
right.
Yeah. So this is about you. And
which makes me a little nervous. I'll admit. I'm excited and also have that like balancing out the excitement and the nerves. So let's quickly talk about the books we're reading so I don't like obsess.
Okay. I'm reading Essentialism. We brought that up in a previous episode. Right. And it's kind of been a kick in the pants. I'm maybe a third of the way through and I've like almost cried twice.
Oh no. Well, there's cries or bad cries?
Well, it's the mirror that it's holding up, like, oh my God, that's me. I didn't realize it was so bad. It's so far gone. So it's been a real eye-opening mirror experience for me.
Okay.
So I totally think it's worth it to read if you are someone that tends to say yes to everything and has your energy kind of scattered and going in all places.
We'll talk about that momentarily, I'm sure.
What about you? What are you reading?
I'm still reading Project Hail Mary. I actually kind of stalled over the weekend. There's just a lot of ancillary things going on. I had some friends in town, but I love this book. This is good. Really, really good. I love if the whole idea that it's very sciencey is true. It's full of science, but the way the Andy Weir takes that, he shows you the science and then shows you like it's like quickly integrated into the storytelling. It's like you get science and then you integrate it and you move on, and it's really like it's kind of fun to see like how the characters learning what's going on, how the two characters are teaching each other things, and how like it's just process, integration, and moving on. And it's just it's great science fiction. It's like Arthur C. Clarke. It's like reminds me of that Rendezvous with Rama, that book that it's very sciencey science fiction, but it's just storytelling using science. And I think that's amazing. So,
and I'm not a science-y person, and so I heard good things about this science fiction novel. Like, even if you don't read science fiction, you'll still enjoy the story. And that's true. And
right.
The science parts are, like you said, written in a way that are accessible and also structurally in the book. If you don't want to, like, I kind of skim a little bit when it starts getting a little bit too, but you're only skimming like a sentence or two, and then you're right back in the story. So I appreciate that structure as well.
I'm not a very sciencey person, but I have a 7-year-old who loves, he'll read books about ants or those things. And what I love is the curiosity. And I think that's what Andy Weir writes with, is the character is very curious. And he says that a few times, like he's a scientist. He has to understand certain things. And so because I'm invested in the character, like I want to figure those things out with him. That's ace writing. I think it's really
so
great.
I don't know how early in the book they talk about his day job on Earth. Do you know what that is? I don't want to spoiler anything for you.
I don't think I've gotten that far yet.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to say anything more, but I think it I think that's the reason the
Oh,
character
because
is that way.
he's a science teacher.
Yeah, for kids.
Yeah, I got that far. It is really like the stuff on Earth is a lot less compelling because it's interesting because it's like kind of written from the news with like climate conversation going on. And
well, I like the way they did it because it's all his memory. That's
right.
how the flashbacks are put in on purpose. It's not even written flat. They are flashbacks because they're memories that he is remembering in the moment.
Right.
So like writer style wise, it is a flashback, but it's almost actually written in two different timelines instead of a flashback, you know? And I thought it was really innovative for the author to say, okay, he has amnesia at the beginning of the book. So he's going to remember as he needs this stuff, he's going to have a memory. And so I just thought it was
when
great.
We're talking about tropes, you know, tropes in fiction, like somebody with amnesia, like remembering things. And like, that's a perfect way to motivate flashbacks because they don't feel like flashbacks to me. They just feel like I know this character is struggling to put things together. Not only the puzzle of how to solve the bigger problem, but also the in the beginning, the how did I get here problem.
Right. And who am I problem.
And who am I? What am I? Why am I here? I mean, I probably read 3 to 5 science fiction books a year. And I think like, I would say this is the best I've read in, you know, since Arthur C. Clarke, since the first, like, really.
So did you read The Martian?
Yeah.
I haven't read The Martian.
I saw the movie first. And so the movie, you know, I kept seeing Matt Damon, and I think the movie I thought the movie was I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah. I liked it.
And so watching it, I was watching the movie in the book. And that I don't do very well because I just like, I'm like editing the movie down in the book. So if I can help it, I'll read the book first. I think this would be a pretty good movie. I think so. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I feel like the interactions with what he finds out there, that the other character, it's very novelistic. So I would be interested to see what a screenwriter would do to how to make that a little more like more compelling, like more cinematically compelling.
Oh, I can think of lots of ways. All right. Well, Eric.
Hi.
Where's your drink, your beverage, your couch? I'm just
right here.
You. I'm just teasing.
Couch. The couch is upstairs, probably the dog's on it. Like, you know, I couldn't move her. So
I totally got distracted by that comment because I sat in I have a chair in this office that I love. It was my grandmother's chair, and then it was my mother's chair. And it's one of those like upholstered rockers from the 90s or something like that, or 80s. And it just fits my body perfectly. And I love it. And it doesn't really fit anywhere else in the house. So it has become the chair that lives in here. And I, again, love sitting in it and journaling or whatever, but I can't have the dogs like on my lap or next to me. You know, there's not enough room. So I don't use it as much as I would, you know, if it were bigger. And there were room for the dogs. So my dog, one of them, has started using it as his bed. So now it's always covered in dog hair. I've never had that problem before. And I sat in it yesterday and I was like, oh, is this going to get me all gross?
Pet peeve, dog hair on the furniture.
I've let
go
of that.
So it's your favorite chair, but it's like the dogs don't love it when you love it because they can't be in your lap.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Eric. All right. So what I am ready to do is listen.
Okay.
And what I would like for you to do is tell me all the things that are bothering you about anything. It can be writer related. It can be entrepreneurial. It can be, you know, nutritionally related, just anything that is bugging you, because that's going to tell me what systems need to be tweaked, for one. And also, you know, as you know, Bob, we get too close to stuff, you know,
right,
and
can't see it for what it is.
Yeah. And sometimes it's helpful just to get a pair of fresh eyes and just see something in a slightly different perspective. And that makes all the difference sometimes. So this is when I do this work for myself, I call this the oh shit list. So I'm just like puking on the page. I'm just
Right.
writing down everything that makes me angry or frustrates me, or, and it doesn't have to be about one thing. So feel free.
Okay.
So
Well,
this is just stuff that, yeah, keep going.
yeah. So I looked, as soon as you said just everything that bothers you, I looked at the clock and said, well, we don't have that kind of time, because I could, I'm pretty open about the things that get under my skin. But so I don't want to edit myself, but I do want to just, I did think of some things like that constructively could be discussed. And so, like, first things first, and I would put this in like sort of the entrepreneurial, just sort of like everyday business relationship category. And that is, I think I have a hard time putting boundaries around people and things. And it's the saying no, but it's also like, for example, I have a client. I take on a few lower paying clients every month, that are just people that need help, can maybe afford me for half of what I normally charge. I try to have one of those people going at all times. I don't want to make any sort of connection here because there's not really one to make, but I've found that sometimes these are the people that don't have that professional regard for me, so I'll say, look, I'm going to do this on Wednesday morning. Between now and then, these are what things I need you to do. And invariably, it seems like that person will push like, oh, okay, well, it's Tuesday. Why haven't you done it? It's Monday. Why haven't you done it? I get people calling and texting over the weekends because they want something done. And so I tend to like underreact and then overreact, right? So I underreact and then overcorrect with those people. I will maybe make that Saturday morning phone call and say, okay, I think I'm going to nip this in the bud and say, all right, I'll call this person. I'll put out the fire for the next few days with them. And 20 minutes now will save me 2 hours later. It doesn't work. Right. And so I have this sort of like, I have boundaries, but I struggle to like keep them. And then there's other times that I feel like I overcorrect, like I over boundary people. I have like a guy, I think I've talked about him on the podcast before, a great regular client. I tend to, maybe because he's a client that's a regular and I know that there's no more selling to be done, we just are always we're working together, I tend to put a bigger box around him. And so I think that, just in a nutshell, that just says like I need some sort of like, I need either the permission or the tools to like, these are the boundaries, these are the rules, everybody's playing in these rules. And I'm talking professionally. I don't tell my family that they have to talk to me between certain hours, but in that professional sense, like I just wonder, I'll reflect on it and say, why am I overcorrecting with one person and under another? And so I think part of it comes from like a fear of like, not necessarily a fear, but just an uncertainty of like, as an entrepreneur, you never really know what the next thing is going to be. And so I sometimes will get into this mentality of like, I have to like overprotect what I have because I don't know what the next thing is going to be. The other things, I think, moving from there, like I find that it's been 10 years in this desk. And I find that how do I put this? Like, I'm very routine. I get up, I have my tea, get myself ready to go. Some days it's walking the kid to school. Like there's that variation in the morning. But when I get in this desk, I tend to be very routine. And I think that's making learning new things very difficult. I feel like I get to a point where a familiarity with the new things I need to learn, but I struggle to get past that from like for example, like Amazon ads or anything that I need to do. So like I have books on Amazon. I have all the ads courses. I find it really hard to retain that information for like, how do I set up ads? How do I monitor ads? Do all those things. And part of it, I think, is because to do this, it will have to become part of my routine. And the routine that I have is so well carved out that it's like, I think there's this part of my brain that says, if you learn this, something else will have to move. And we don't know how to move that thing right now because keeping it in place is comfortable. So I need this. There's a bunch of things that like I'm on the brink of. Like I need to figure out. I need to get from familiar to good at, in order to move certain parts of my business forward. Another one of those things like Facebook ads, Google ads, Amazon ads, and then there's like, how do I want to do just basic Facebook video. Just I see people doing it all the time. They're talking about their books, their writer life, keeps people engaged. The few times I've done it, gotten great results, 5 or 10 pre-sales of a book, 2 or 3 ARC, yeah, I'll read your book. And so it works. But again, I have a hard time integrating that into my routine because something is holding me back. And I think it's the routine.
What is your current routine once you sit in the desk?
So what I usually do is I don't know, I got to think about it. It's so ingrained that it's like muscle memory. I think when I sit down, I have my sort of time, just like I sit down, I do fantasy baseball. I read a few articles here and there about things just to ease myself into the desk. Then I send client emails, usually from 7:30 to 8. I respond to any little, kind of little fires then. And then usually at 8 o'clock, I write from 8 until noon. That is 4 days out of the week. Wednesday's the variable there. Mm-hmm. And then at noon, it's usually like a half an hour to, for lunch. And I take a break every 45 minutes. I follow that parallel play timeline as best I can. And then I take a break at noon, and then I'm back at the desk at 12:30, and then I work until the afternoon obligation arises. So if it's 3 to pick Elijah up, if it's 3 when I have to go out and do other work. So I'm at that desk writing in there as well. There's plenty of time.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. That 12:30 to 3 work, is that client work?
Usually the afternoon. Usually the afternoon is client work. So the writing in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is on my book. And then in the afternoons, I'm usually working on a client book. Lately, I've been sort of working on client stuff more because I have a bit of a backlog. It's not a bad backlog. It's just, I've got to finish some things. And so I'm spending Mondays and Fridays writing for clients all day. And I enjoy that, actually. I pick clients that I like, and I pick good stories to work on. And so I'm actually enjoying the fact that I'm finishing up some good things. Mm-hmm. So that routine, and there's plenty of time. That's what I keep telling myself. There's plenty of time, even when I get Elijah home and, he wants to play with his friends, or, we interact and we play and I make dinner, but there's still I'll still have an hour I could sit there and read some articles, or I could, there's plenty of time to pick up and learn things and read the things. It's integrating those things, because I firmly believe, I got to make sure what I say next is the right thing. I think that there's for me at least, there's acquisition of information. When it comes to new skills, I've got to read about it, learn about it. Then I have to just play with it for a while. I have to fumble it. I have to drop it. I have to mess it up. And then I have to start doing it. I can't just read it to mastery. And I think that's probably true for everybody. It's just getting to that fumbling to mastery place that is challenging.
And is it challenging for you because you don't want to do bad work? Is it that you don't have a system or a checklist in place? You don't know what to do next? Where does that, where is it that you are stopping there? Where's the choke point?
I think that the first thing you said of all that resonates the most. I think that just take Amazon ads for the first thing, right? And because that's right on my top of my list of, I have a book coming out in August. I recognize now I have 3 books in a series. I need to start tinkering with Amazon ads. Part of it is committing valuable work time to something that I'm a C- at, knowing that I'll eventually get to where I want to be. But I'll think to myself, maybe okay, do the thing you're good at, and we can work. We'll get to this other thing later. I think there's a lot there may be a lot of that. there's also the money side of it too, where like a lot of the things that I'm holding up on, yeah, I'm going to have to spend a few $100 on Amazon ads and get them wrong before I get them right. And that's a little intimidating. And not that there's, not to go too into that weeds, but like, it's not like I don't have that money in the business account to experiment with. In fact, I have money set aside to do that. I guess it's playing a card that I am not sure of at this point. I would say like oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say something flippant.
Oh, no. I mean, my mind is rolling right now. So this is very good. I think like on the other side of that, so like that, I think of that last problem as like an inhibition. Like there's just some inhibition there. There's something holding me back. There's the other side of it, and that is and I don't know if this is a problem as much as I just can't stop coming up with stuff. It's like, it is really, like, for example, I have a client that I work with. I do work with developmentally disabled men. Like, I have a guy every Thursday, we go see movies and go to comic book stores and bookstores. We nerd out together. And often I will spend my Thursday afternoon sitting around at McMiniman's with him and reading. He'll buy a stack of comic books. We'll go do that. And then we'll read the comic books together. And, so I'm sitting around reading comic books, and I will, I have my little notebook sitting next to me, and I will almost always, out of those reading sessions with Willie, I will sit there and go, oh, this would be really great. Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. And I'll actually, like a month ago, I kind of came up with like a whole sub series of the current series I'm working on. Like, I could write 5 books right here. I mapped them out. That is a good problem to have in some ways, because it gives me that confidence that as the author business becomes more of my business, I'm not going to run out of ideas. I'm not going to be one of those people that gets to the end of 3 books and not know what to do. I worry a little bit that I will be chasing those threads, and will I be able to, will I always know what the good ideas are? Will I ever get to fully seize the potential of anything because I'm always chasing the next thing? That less and less is something I worry about, but it hangs there in the back of my mind. I think if let's say I spent a year just like powering out that little series, that sub series that I had thought of, would I be missing something else? Would I be missing the next great book in the main series? So there's that. Like, the being prolific is something I take pride in, because I think being a writer, like, I always like reading the back of the book and you read the author, like what they've done. And I always like authors like Harlan Ellison, where it's like author of over 500 short stories and novels and in all these genres. Like, that's what I set out to do. But doing that is hard, especially when you're balancing it with other things. So how to be prolific and stay focused is a challenge. The other challenge in that, and this is just sort of maybe an organizational thing, is that with all the stuff, you're building all the stuff, it's tracking everything so like, I've been really working on creating some documents that say, all right, in book 1, you said this, so that if I want to use that side character again, or use that location again, I don't, like, does the same named bridge go over the same river every time in my book series? Does Butch Ivy, who's like one of my bar characters, he's a forklift operator, right? Oh no, he's a lineman for the power company, right? So I think that there's so much, like, when there's so much story, you also have to have a bit of organization. I feel like a beater sometimes, like, you ever see a beating person who does beating and look at their work area? There are so many little trays of sizes and colors and materials and strings and all that stuff. Like, that's what it feels like. It's, and if you need to reach for that blue bead, you have to know where the blue bead is going to be.
Yeah. You're talking about a series Bible.
A series Bible. Right. And I've started on one, and actually it's pretty, I mean, filling it in as I go is fun. But it is a challenge to in your head I sometimes I'll get an idea and there will be sort of like the echoes of other ideas in there too. Like, did I already say this? Did I already do this? Is there, who do I need to add? The series Bible works when I'm here, but when I'm like walking around in the world and an idea strikes me, there's like a cascade of not panic, like it's excitement. Like I love getting that story idea. I just got one the other day that it was really like, oh yeah, I'm going to definitely use this, but it also brings that sense of like, how's it going to fit in? And am I going to be able to always fit everything in? I got stacks of old notebooks over there from like journals and idea books. And I fear opening them up because I'm just going to find 15 more ideas that I started on that I didn't follow. And so like moving then on sort of in a connected way, like I think there's a restlessness, and this is like all the time. There's a restlessness for, I have the vision. I know where this goes. And I am confident that when it's all together, it's going to work. Like I'm confident that in a year or so, I'll have that series that is it's making a little money. It's building, it's that sustainable working series in the author profile. I'm confident that's what The Strange Air will be, especially with the next two things coming. It's like, this is going to be great. There is that restlessness though. Like and that's part of, I think, maybe why learning new things is hard, because like it's not entirely there and I can see it, and that makes me restless. And that also maybe makes me question whether, is it time to do this? Is it time to do that? Like the big picture, I'm confident in the results, but there's just this restlessness that comes with it. It's not happening tomorrow. The next book comes out August 18th. I'm just plugging there. That's August 18th. People go get it. But then the next one will probably be December, January. The one after that probably March, because it's a novella. I've mapped it all out. So I'm confident that it's all going to be there. It's just, I need it to be there because I want to start playing with it. I want to start using it the way I see other authors doing. And I have a bit of, I don't want to say regret. I have a bit of, I wish, what I see with a lot of the other prolific types out there, and again, I'm just judging from what I see in Facebook groups, so I could be entirely wrong here, but when I see people putting out 2 or 3 books a quarter, and then I read them and I recognize that they're writing to a certain market, right? There is still a difference between a rapid release sci-fi book and Project Hail Mary. There's a big difference, right? It's a meteor. The book that takes longer is ultimately meteor. It's ultimately better researched, better edited. It's just, there's no comparing them. That's my belief. Like I love what those writers are doing. And there's like a FOMO side for me too with it, where it's like, I wish I didn't have this. I have degrees in English, like I read literature until I was like 30 before, like I hold myself to, this sounds so snobbish, but like a higher standard, and I'm just not going to put out a book that I churned out in a month and didn't really edit because I want to fit that Amazon profile. But I wish sometimes that I didn't have that inhibition. I wish I could be churning out that romance book every month or whatever those people are doing, because they're where I want to be. So there is a bit of angst, maybe. I don't know. I'm searching for the words. Maybe it's irrelevant. It's just, I have this feeling about like, I know where I want to get, but I've also sort of bred myself as a writer to not get there fast. Like I've made myself the kind of writer that's going to take time. And so that's hard, like, because
that is
time is time.
Is that okay? So let me analyze the semantics there. So
I can drink my tea too.
Yeah. So are you saying then that you've bred yourself into this type of writer? Is that type of writer stem from a core value that you have, or is it an external obligation or set of expectations that aren't yours?
That stems from being, so I think everything about what I want and desire and all those values come from, I mean, so it's my left, your camera right, or whatever. It's right there. It's Stephen King's books. Like when I read those at like 13 or 14 years old, and that is like books like The Stand and The Shining and less The Shining, I guess. Even Tommy Knockers, which is like kind of one of his mediocre books. It is still an immersive, full-fleshed experience. I would argue in college all the time with like professors that would talk about, how that's not lit, that's not real writing. It's real writing, just because it's not Hemingway or so my values come from like, that is what I want. I want that. He's a master and I may never be that master. I can accept that, but that's what I will always strive for. Mm-hmm. And for me, I know getting there takes time. It takes writing a clumsy first draft. It takes running it through writers group Gary. It takes all of that. It'll take me, even when I think everything is humming, I think it's going to always take me 6 to 8 months to really produce 6 months to produce a really good book, and that's
right now, as the writer that you are today, it will take you 6 to 8 months to complete a book, but maybe in 2 or 3 years, it'll take you 6 months. And then, every book you write is, could be, I'm not going to say it is, but it could take you less and less time so that you could work yourself up into a nice, steady, every year you're putting out a book, or every year you're putting out 2 books, or, you'll settle into whatever your process is. So it sounds.
When you say settle, when you said settle, like, I think that's part of it too. Like, I think that between the series Bible and the process and getting all this together, I think really, I've only really had the pieces together for about, I would say like 8 months. So it took a long time to admit that I needed the writers group, and to admit that I can't keep everything in my head. I need to write the Bible for my series down. So yeah, I think there's still a settling that needs to happen for me. That's happening. Mm-hmm. Being in the settling period is tough though. So
yeah. Well, and I think that the reason why, have you ever taken the Clifton Strengths test?
I've taken the Myers-Briggs one, same thing every time, but I've never taken that.
So
should I?
Well, I think it's powerful in knowing where your strengths lie, and that if you focus on your strengths, you can become excellent at those things. And the areas that you are not strong in don't need your attention. I think based on your conversation, you probably are pretty high in futuristic, because you can. I am too. I'm like number 3, futuristic or something. You can totally see what it looks like, and you just want to be there already. And it's hard to recognize and acknowledge that you're not there yet, even though you can totally see how it would be if you were there, and all that FOMO. And yeah, I totally get you.
Right. It's like Act 1 is great. Like, it's getting the idea, getting started, getting moving, getting things together. And Act 3 is great because you're there. But there's that second act in the middle of any process where you're figuring
refining
things out.
Yeah, you're refining. Okay, so I'm hearing that you've got a boundaries thing, and you are
Here's how much I have a boundaries thing. Like, doing this on this computer, like, I have to keep those things closed, because if someone pokes through, it will drive me nuts. I will, if I see an email come through, I'll say like, it better not be that person, because it creates anxiety, not bad boundaries.
Okay. So boundaries, and somehow that education piece. Yeah,
Right.
the
Education.
implementing the education, not the input of the education. You have that down. It's the next step, I guess.
Right. It's the fumbling time.
And then and that restlessness versus vision versus like too many ideas. Which idea do I work on? What if I lose the ideas? That's that angsty part too. So I see
Always.
those as those are three separate things. Is there, more things that are bugging you?
I mean, we could go, like I said, we could go on all day. But I
Even
think
if you
that,
don't think it's related, because sometimes there really is.
well, I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, I think that, everything I mean, yes, there's plenty of things, but I guess I would say that like a lot of those things are like, these are the things that I am like, I wake up with.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that I am in my, during my day with, and these are the things I go to bed with when it
Mm-hmm.
comes, like, these are the clear, like, challenges that I'm always wrestling. I'll pick the kid up from camp today and it'll be on my mind about, I'll pass the little library on the corner and it'll spark something, like either an idea, or it'll spark oh boy, when am I going to walk past one of these little libraries and see one of my books by chance?
Mm-hmm.
There's a million triggers for these things. On that walk home with him, my phone will be in my pocket. Is that next ping going to be that client who's not listened to the fact that I'm done at 5? So these are the things that I feel like, and I'm going to probably at some point in the next couple of days sit down with a kid and talk about how to learn something, how to master something, and I'll sit there and say, listen to what you're saying, because you need to do this thing too. I mean, I tell them that all the time, all
Mm-hmm.
baseball season. It's going to take practice, a lot of swings and misses before you get some hits. I need to, and here I am, like, that's me too. So, and I think,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think getting past these things will make other things easier, because these are big ones.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of boundaries, do you have a clear SOP, Eric? Do you have a standard operating procedure when it comes to what hours you're working during the day?
For me, do I have that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I know from a day-to-day basis what I'm gonna do, what on a weekly basis. I mean, it changes from week to week. This week's different because Elijah's in camp till 5. Next week will be different because I have to pick him up downtown at 3. So that changes my day dramatically. So I know, and if I'm in a space with clients where there's like regular conversation, I'll let them know, hey, this week I'm available till 5. This week I'm available till 2:30 or whatever. So it's always fluid, but I know what it is on a daily basis. Yes.
So I would challenge you to come up with hours of operation for your clients and have it written down and have it be part of the onboarding of new clients. And that can be anything from, I'm available via email from 2 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, or whatever it is. It can be, I only check my emails Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you need me outside of those hours, then this is the secondary form of connection, or whatever.
Right.
You can make it anything you want it to be. So spend some time with, what are the ideal boundaries? What is the ideal setup, and see how close you can get it to that. Write it down, make it part of any new client at all gets that. You can also attach it to your, what do they call that? A rule, or when someone emails you, you get the out of the office, response. You can set one of those up that just says, thanks for your email. I check emails, Tuesdays and Thursdays until, at 4:30.
Right.
I'll get back to you, within 24 hours of me receiving your email, or something like that. You can just be really blatant about, so anytime anybody emails you, they'll know right away that, okay, this is not going to be response. I'm not going to be able to text him in 20 minutes.
I get those all the time from people. And I feel like, yeah, I see that and say, like, put that on the to-do list. That should be something I have. And I think part of that comes from, part of the reluctance to do that is because I am aware of my schedule and I know that it's going to change. So I guess that's irrelevant to other.
It is irrelevant to your clients, really, because even if your schedule, okay, so if you have to pick up Elijah at 3:00 every day this week, but next week you don't have to pick him up till 5:30, then you set the parameters for assuming he'll always be there at 3:00.
Right. And that that's what, that's
and then in terms of all of the people that you are currently working with, specifically the two that have a little more floaty boundaries, because you've let that happen, because you've said that that's okay. They're just operating under, they're just assuming everything is status quo and it's going to keep doing this. So you're going to have to send out a specific email saying, I'm so happy that we have this, working relationship. I've thought about, some new business hours, or, however you want to word it. I don't know what kind of relationship you have with them, but basically just tell them, this is the new deal.
Right. This is how it goes from here on.
Yeah. And, if they already have your text message, if they already have your phone number and you're getting texts from them, then you can turn off those notifications. You can set your phone to like on a do not disturb every day at 5 p.m. or something like that. So you're not going to be getting them. So those are, things like that, setting up systems so that you don't have that interruption anymore and that you have working hours. You can personally, Erick Mertz, the author, work whenever you want to, but training your clients that you are available to them during certain hours is what's important here, I think, so that you're not doing work on Saturday morning when you don't want to work on Saturday morning or whatever, or if you want to work on Saturday morning, it's because it's something that you want to do, or it's your writing or something like that.
Yeah. If I ever do end up at my desk on a weekend or on 4th of July morning, I ended up down here for a couple of hours. I wasn't working on client work. I don't take that extra time on client work. I put that extra time towards mine. And so, yeah, I hear you. Okay. I got it.
So writing that SOP, that standard operating procedure for your business hours, and having it clearly stated in your onboarding system with new clients and sending out a special one to your current ones. In terms of your lower paying clients each month, if that still feels comfortable to you, then awesome. You can keep that in your SOP. But again, being really clear about your boundaries with those clients, I think will take a lot of anxiety out of your day-to-day world.
And that's what needs to happen.
In terms of your current routine and adding in time to implement whatever it is that you're learning, we'll just talk Amazon ads right now, because that you said was kind of your next foray. So in the afternoon, you've got client work, and in the morning, you do your own writing. When do you do newsletter work or admin, or if that's before you write, correct? You do client emails.
Admin is usually in the morning. I put newsletter time as sort of put it in my time somewhere. I have one coming next week, and I'm going to write it at like 11 on Monday or something.
Okay. So I would encourage either one morning a week or 1 hour of your writing time, or, something like that is regular, that you only use for practicing. or whatever word it is that feels accessible to you. Practice time, implement time, like call it something so that it's exciting for you and not drudgery. It's not Amazon ad time. It's whatever it is that sparks your, curiosity. Like, for instance, I hate accounting and bookkeeping, and I really struggle with that in my business. And so now every week I try to have a money magic time where I light a candle, I journal, turn on some music, I pull a tarot card, and I pull up my bank balances. Like, I try to make it more fun for me.
Right.
So do that, like call it something that's fun, or, it's playtime. It's the time to just play in the sandbox. You're just figuring things out. It's supposed to be clunky. And, every Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock until noon, you're going to play in the sandbox, whatever you want to call it. And then maybe that will start getting you, because you are so prolific with ideas and your brain works really fast. And, if you allow yourself time to play in the sandbox with whatever it is, Amazon ads, or, whatever the next thing is on the list, then maybe that will start, you'll do that for the Amazon ads. You'll get excited about this and have an idea about this. And, it's just time set aside to be bad at something for a little bit.
It's funny you say that, because I, and this might be just like a pride thing. I don't know.
Nobody's watching, Eric.
Well, right. And I tell that to people all the time. It is that, like, just, you worry a little bit about, if I'm bad at this thing for the next month or two, is it going to bleed into other things? You just have that, like, is it going to knock your confidence? I mean, it's not. I know it's not. There's, like, the rational side of me says, they're different things, right? I know in my brain that writing the story is different than marketing the story. But there is that, like, but this is so much more comfortable. This is so much nicer. But I think, if I think about it like play, or like more fun, like trying to make it fun, because that's what I tell Elijah, like, just, we're playing a game. You don't have to be the best hitter on the team yet. That doesn't matter right now. I need to take some of that advice and be a little more childlike about
it. Playing in the sandbox.
Yeah, I love that term too.
So the restlessness part, chasing the next thing, being prolific and focused. Man, I have so much to say on this, but to be succinct, what works for me in staying focused is having a plan. And even if I have to change the plan every 2 weeks, I like having that plan, that checklist. That's what works for me. That helps me stay focused, because if my mind wanders, I can be like, okay, what was I doing? Oh yes, the next thing on the list. This is what I'm working on. And I go back into it. It's just like meditation, when your mind's wandering, nope, we're meditating, we're breathing. Okay, yeah, we're breathing, and it doesn't matter how many times a day I have to go back to my list and say, what was I doing? It sounds like I have a short-term memory loss problem, but the shiny object syndrome really it's exhausting sometimes, because you're just all over the place. And I totally get that. So that's why checklists help me. I'm not saying that's the answer to your problems, but if something like that does help, I don't know if you've tried that before. And in terms of a checklist for restlessness, I mean, you already do. Okay, so you've got your series Bible, and that will help alleviate some of the worry of, did I write this already? Did I have this idea already? Because it's in the series Bible. You can have it color coded for stuff that you've actually written, or stuff that you want to put in later, like, oh, I'm going to do this thing with the bartender, and he's going to, have a well, not a forklift injury because he's not a forklift driver, but
Right.
whatever, and you can have that color coded as something different. Like it's not written, it's not in the series yet, but I want it to be there. Or you can have a whole other, like, I mean, you said you've got notebooks full of ideas and you're afraid to open it up because what are you going to do with all those ideas that you hadn't put somewhere else? So maybe some sort of a different way to collect your ideas, maybe that might help you keep better track of them if that's what you're worried about, or if you're worried about if you're just worried about losing them, putting them in a different place, maybe digitally or something like that. I don't know if that's something that you're actually worried about, or if it's more like, what do I do with all the ideas? I want to work on them, but then what do I do about this? Is it the interruption of the idea? It's not the collecting.
Yeah, it's like this idea, like the great thing about an idea is that it can be anything. So you chase it because you can be with anything. So the catch-22 is like an idea needs to be that. It needs to be anything. I think this is what makes good, like, coming up, like, story creation is like, it needs to stay in the possible for as long as you can before you memorialize it in story. Like the longer you deal with the possibilities, the more you'll get out of it. And then when you put it down on paper.
Well, it's also great when it's an idea. It's going to be the best it possibly can be. And then when we translate it to the page, it's not as great as what was in our mind. And so it's fun to have it stay in our mind, because
it's like when you buy a house or a car, like it's great when you're on the lot or when you're in the tour, doing the tour, and then the minute it's yours, oh look, scuff, oh look, that doesn't, low flow in the bathtub, it's like, so I understand that. And I think that there's just I have this philosophy of staying in the what if with a story for as long as possible. Like what if, keep coming up with ideas to surround the main ideas with. And that just is, kind of leads to a struggle with, like, this one I'm going to tie down, this one I'm not, this one I'm going to tie down and write, and I'm not, like, you can't write all of them. Mm-hmm. You can't. I think that acceptance,
not at the same time anyway. I mean,
not at the same time.
Yeah.
And not ever. There's probably 75 novels down there. Like, just what if we did a book about this? Like, I can't write every one of them because there's a new one that comes up every time. So acceptance is in here somewhere.
Well, maybe not yet. Maybe it's okay to have the collection of ideas. What if there's 500 ideas on your list? That's okay. You can have as many ideas as you want. Having them all in a Google Doc or whatever, just having them listed somewhere will make it easy to skim if you're, needing a new idea, or if you just want the reassurance that you still have ideas, whatever it is, like they're just right there in one document away. You can just look at it. So that might give you some peace. And then as far as, you are a prolific writer, you have a production schedule and you stick to it, really. Even if you're writing other things on the side, you're still publishing work. So I don't see that as a problem. If it's uncomfortable, not knowing which one to keep in your mind long or whatever. Are you a plotter? I can't remember I'm sure we had this conversation.
I am now. Yeah.
You are now. Okay. So having the idea in your head, I think in order to know if it's viable, you can plot it out. It doesn't have to be like, a chapter outline. It can just be like the conflict, choice, consequence, is this, what's the beginning, middle, end, like just sort of high, what do they call that? Not high value. Just the macro view of it. Would this story be viable? Could I make this? And if it can't, it goes in the short story pile, or it just leaves, or it goes to the bottom of the list. Maybe I want to think about this longer. It's not working, whatever. So having a system of checking in with the idea when it's time. First you capture the idea, and then when you have time to think about it, then you can branch out and look at it macro and see, is this a viable story option? No, down at the bottom of the list, or delete, next one, until you find one that really sparks your interest and you want to work. If you've got multiple things going on at the same time, which, let's face it, you always do in terms of stories.
True.
You're editing one novel, or you're writing a short story in another world, or, you also publish fantasy as well as paranormal mystery. So you've always got something going on. If you're worried about what thing to work on next, or if you're feeling particularly angsty, restless, I don't know where to go. I'm going to go woo here for just a second. Okay.
That's good.
Because I know you pull a tarot card every day. So what if you did that for, like, I'm feeling anxious. I don't know if I should go with this story or that story. Like, what if you went to the cards for that? I don't know.
I sometimes think that chance and those sorts of things are as good a guides as, being rigorous and calculating. I've definitely had that, a little bit of that, like something will come up in the deck and I'll say, oh, well, let's just go there. It'll guide me through like two practical, points. And so
sometimes we get so stuck in our head that we can't, it becomes this like negative downward spiral of whatever our choices that day. And being able to, so Joe Bartlett, our friend Joe Bartlett, they use that hat trick. It's a way to access that intuition, I guess. If you've got two ideas, you put them in the hat and you draw one randomly, but your reaction to the random drawing is the intuition. If you draw one and you think, oh, I really wanted the other one to show up, well, then that's the project that you're supposed to be working on. So it doesn't matter what comes out of the hat. What matters is what that knee-jerk reaction is to it.
Interesting.
So sometimes drawing a tarot card is like accessing that. Oh.
I never thought of it that way. I like that. I never thought of like it's more my it could be like the value is as much in my reaction as it is in the outcome. Now I'm going to ponder there for a while.
All right. Well, was any of that useful?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Are you kidding? Like, I mean, I just wrote down in my little notebook, like I'm going to come up with like some things. So Thursday afternoon is my brainstorm time.
Okay.
And sort of like business priority time. And so I wrote on there, like, come up with a standard operating procedure, because of all the things we're talking about. Like I tried to start with, sort of, I don't know, like I tried to save the big picture stuff for the end, like, but just in a simple, like, that's a very simple thing. Like that's anxiety. It's a simpler, boundaries are always going to, I shouldn't say boundaries are ever simple, but if you have a standard operating procedure, at least you have something concrete and rather simple to fall back on when you're frustrated. You can say, and I had a client, 31 emails and texts over this weekend, 31. And I if you have that standard, and I didn't respond to any of them. This was just the weekend that I'm not going to do this right now. If I have something to point to, it's at least a way to deal with that frustration, a very concrete and simple way to say, look, so-and-so, this is when I'm available right here. The other stuff is a lot more discipline. I think I'm definitely going to sit down and come up with that, like kind of a way to integrate that sandbox hour here and there.
I think picking the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a lot, and it doesn't have to be every day, but having a regular stated time that you're only going to be, I mean, this is how people start writing their words. They show up at the desk, and whether they write 3 words or 500 or 3,000, it doesn't matter. They showed up at the desk and at the time that they said they were going to do it. And so just having that slot, whether you do what you set out to do or not, it's set aside for that integration, that playtime.
Right. And I just forget I forget that process, right? I mean, just of why, we're all here and, you and I are here now, and, we're past that sort of can I do this? Will I do this thing? We're in a different, we've kind of moved into like proficiency. Like I've forgotten a lot of how, at least at the desk, you get to proficiency. Like in the rest of my life, like, I've made a lot of bad meals. I'm a decent cook now. I've done a lot of things poorly and I've figured out how to get, gather the skill for it. I think here is just, there's that point of pride where you're like, I'm a professional, I'm good at the things I do. Well, behind the mat, behind behind the fourth wall, you have to get good at those things. So we forget that just because you're a pro doesn't mean you're not fumbling your way through new things.
I take pride in learning new things.
I'm gonna say that needs to be the goal then, is to get back to that. I used to be that person that, now this is gonna go down a different road, but like I used to be the person that like was most likely to, I think anytime I'd run into people and they'd say, what are you doing? I'd say, oh, I'm brewing beer now, or I'm making this, or I'm doing that. I was always that. There was always something new. And I think part of it is like, I'm trying to raise a human being and live a life at the same time. That's taken preoccupied a lot of that. But that is also kind of an excuse. I think getting good at things like that. I think that there's a skill. This is something I sincerely believe, is that there is a skill, and that is called learning things. Like you can cultivate that skill of teaching yourself things. You just have to do it a lot. So I need to get back to that.
Also, I think for me anyway, giving myself the permission to not do anything with the thing I learned is important, because sometimes I won't learn a thing because I think, well, how practical is that? Or, I can't really use that or whatever, sometimes that's what's stopping me. Usually not, because I've got so many ideas and so many things I have to start saying no out of course. Like right now we're writing this book. Right now we're writing this book. Right now we're writing this book. I don't need to go take a 6-month course on blah, blah, blah. I'm writing this book, so I have to do that focus thing on myself, because I get distracted easily. But if you're stopping yourself from learning because you think it's not useful later, it doesn't have to be useful later. It will be, because you've trained that muscle, you're practicing, there's a lot of different reasons to write scenes.
Right.
So if it's developing your character by learning this thing, it can stay.
I actually had a thought recently, like I just want to learn something new and completely useless, like just something that has no practical, like, this is really goofy, but you ever see the trick where people will stack quarters on their elbow and then catch them? Like they'll do that thing.
Oh,
it's like when I was in high school, like I think I got up to like 60 quarters on my elbow that I could catch. Not every time, but like a good percentage of the time I could. Why did I do that? I have no idea. And I feel like I need to get right. And then it's like free money when you mess it up, because everybody's running for your quarters back when quarters counted for something. But I think there's like that sort of like, when I make that connection between like my hesitance to with the Amazon ads and all the other things that I'm like, like hitting my head against, it's like, I need one of those things. Like I need just to do something so meaningless that I can get good at it, to remind myself like, right, it's just a matter of like, look at, here's the process. You couldn't do 1, now you can do 10, or that kind of thing will like rekindle some of that. I had that thought.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And also another place that some people get stuck is the steps are too big. Okay. Learning Amazon ads is a huge blob.
Right.
So if you have already read the books and you've already got ideas, the next concrete action step you could take to integrate would probably be actually you don't even have to find the stock image, because it's just the book cover.
Right.
Yeah. So, writing the copy.
Right.
Maybe that's the next thing. Just practice like writing the rough draft of the copy, and then finding the spot in the book that talks about writing the draft of the copy, and match it up and see what you need to do to tweak. Those are your first 2 steps. So breaking it down into those micro things, I think develops confidence, because you're doing what you set out to do. You're accomplishing something, and you can see, prowess at that thing.
Right.
And if you don't even go any further than that, you just stay in that 1-2 step for like 10 different ads, and then go to the next step and tweak it. I don't know. Like there's a bunch of different ways to break down a project.
Right.
And
if you look at anybody that's successful with it, and they talk about, when you read those people having those discussions, like, how did you make this work? How did you make that work? Every one of them. It's like, oh, I did, like, it took me 10 ads to figure out how to do that, and 10 ads how to do that. And so, yeah.
It's practice time.
Practice time.
Sandbox.
I'm going to do it tomorrow afternoon. Like I said, I do my brainstorming usually tomorrow about 1:00. I go sit in a cafe and spend a few hours doing that before reading comic books. And that's like, yeah, I'm going to add that on there.
All right.
Because it is, if I look at all the other things that I put on there when I do goal setting, it's always, the goal setting is always, there's a step between me and that goal, and that is learning something. And I'm like, I keep moving certain goals down the path because it's like the learning.
Well, learning something is the goal. So you can just put,
that needs
read one chapter in Amazon ad book. That can be your goal for the week.
Right. Well, I think part of the goal setting issue that I'll have is like, it's the goal is the outcome, not the process. And that can be like taking a step in the process. And so I'll say, like, I'm going to have a YouTube channel with like videos for my services. It's like, well, hold on. Like, goal number 1 is write the scripts for the videos. Goal number 2, get the lighting situated for your, like, do the steps, make the steps the goals, and you'll get to the goal, rather than just having this outcome as your goal. It is the big goal, right? But it's not the little goal.
It's the project.
Right.
And you break it down into tasks.
Okay. I'm doing this. This is the way tomorrow's going to go. I promise.
All right. So before we talk next time,
okay,
you will write that SOP for the boundaries, when you're operating and when you answer emails and texts from clients. Okay. I think that should be part of it.
Okay.
Or,
for those who are not watching, I am writing all this down. Like, these are things before I talk to Val next that I'm going to do.
And
I'm going to do I'm going to break big goals into small goals.
Yeah. And then as far as the series Bible and the idea list, I think I would encourage you to find a way to make that more accessible to you. So you told me that, it's fine if you're sitting right there at your desk and then you can check your series Bible or add something to it. So what's the process of, I'm not at my desk and I have something I need to add to this series Bible? Where does that go until I can get it into the series Bible? Okay. And create a system there, like plan B.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I can do all these things in a week.
All right.
Anybody watching can see my like skeptical look. I can do all these in a week. I have the time for this sort of, creation, and I just need to apply it.
Cool. Well, awesome. I am going camping in a couple of hours. So normally for a coaching client, I would then type all this up and have like bullet points and email it to the client right after the session.
Not this time. I don't
know that I'll have the time to do that this time.
No, don't even bother. I know where you're going, and you got to get moving.
So, but I do want to check in with you next time. And I guess we'll decide this offline, but if you want to have a follow-up coaching session as the next podcast interview, cool. Or we can talk marketing or, something else, and then come back and do like part 2 or follow up, at a different time. I guess we'll have to decide.
Yeah, we can talk about that offline.
Okay. Well, it's been really great talking with you. I hope it was useful.
For breaking me down. Oh, yeah.
That sounds like a song. Break it on down.
Thank you for breaking me down. It's been very useful, and it's been it helps just to say it, and then like getting feedback that's useful is like like priceless bonus.
Cool. Well, if you have any comments, listeners, you can put that in our YouTube channel or on the website for the podcast, valerieihsan.com/podcast-news. And have a happy week. It's summer
weekend,
here.
everybody.
Yay. It's nice and warm. I'm wearing a tank top and everything.
I'm still hoodied.
You're still hoodie? It's the basement.
Hoodied. Still wearing a hoodie. It's cool down here.
It's cool down there.
Have a great trip this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll be in touch. Happy writing, everybody.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Happy writing.